I assumed would lead to lower sales.
That is where you are wrong.
And it turns out, no. Over 10 million Nintendo Switch.
That's not true because Pokemon Legends ZA sold 50% worse than Arceus did. And the funny thing is, that game was dropped solely on Switch 1 with a lower install base. You guys have to look at things in perspective. Nobody's saying that the Switch 2 is a failure. As far as I'm concerned, the Switch 2 is doing quite well. It's a portable. Nintendo has always dominated in portable gaming. Why are people acting like this is some news that we haven't heard about already? Now, let's look at things in perspective. You want to sit there and bring up Mario Kart World selling 9 point. Those were bundled in. Nobody single-handedly bought that game. That game came directly with the Switch too. So I don't even know if you really can count that. Now, Donkey Kong Bonanza, you can. And if you think about it, that is 70% less. Because you guys say that people pick up these systems for exclusives. Well, 70% did not pick up this game. Now, mind you, people say, well, everybody does. Listen, this is to throw things in perspective. We know the Switch 2 is doing well. Nobody's hating on it. But you guys are saying that the games are doing better. The only reason as to why some of these games are selling well, look at it. Super Mario Party Jamboree, whatever. 1 million on the Switch 2. How many of those were upgrade packs? Think about it. Ain't nobody really buying these games. You're like, damn, games, you kind of right, though. Pokemon Legends ZA had the backs of 154 million Switch 1s and about 10 million Switch 2s, and the game sold 50% worse than the game that came out on Switch 1 with a lower install base at the time of when that game came out. I do think people are buying the hardware. I do think people are not really playing it. I think it's collecting a lot of dust, even though you guys don't want to admit it. Pokemon Legends, probably ZA should be up there. I think it sold 50% on Switch 1 and 50% on Switch 2. I think they said the Switch 2 owners did buy it a little bit, but that's actually quite a concern because I do think that these games are going to do well, but I do think they're only going to do well if they're cross-generation. That's why Metroid Prime 4 and all these games that are being made have Switch 1 in mind. Because if Nintendo was so confident in putting these games on the Switch 2 directly, then the sales would definitely be a lot lower. Now, mind you, Donkey Kong Bonanza gets credit, but you can't sit there and say, oh, well, Mario Kart World sold well when people didn't even really buy it. It was bundled with the Switch. That's why Wii Sports is the highest selling game, because you know why? It was bundled with the console. You know what I mean? That's like bragging, well, Astro's Playroom sold 80 million people. Because technically speaking, Astro Playroom is a free game, but so is this. Oh, think about it. Astro Playroom sold better than this. It was bundled with the system. You bought the system, you get access to the game. No different than a bundle. It's all the same stuff, guys. No different than Mario NES with the Mario NES with the NES with Duck Hunt. It's all the same principles. Same thing with Sonic the Hedgehog with the Sega Genesis. Bundled in game, right? So that means that Astro Playroom sold 80 million. According, it's so funny because they don't even use that as an argument. You notice that, right? As a bundle-in game, that's crazy, man. You Sony fanboys better go advocate for that. Hey, man, we got the highest selling game here, actually. 80 million PS5's got Astro's Playroom in it. It was a bundle. I'm surprised that ponies ain't ran with that narrative yet. Y'all could, technically speaking. I mean, if this is what people doing with bundling games, I mean, you can kind of say that, but I'm only using it in regards to a discussion and an argument. Just trying to put things in perspective.
Who sold in just under 4 months. Still the fastest selling game console ever. Just insane levels of success. The Switch effect is still alive and well. I love the console so happy.
No, it's not, because people are buying third-party games less than ever. What are you talking about, the Switch effect? People are switching off. What do you people don't understand? You guys want to sit there and act like that. Listen, man, I know Nintendo's doing great, but I've already put my money down on Grand Theft Auto 6, and that's going to single-handedly destroy the Switch 2. Yeah, they're going to garner as much sales now because they ain't really no competition. There ain't really no games coming out. So it's probably going to do well until Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. And just like the Wii U before, it will be forgotten. I think the Switch 2 will still be successful. But you guys are acting like it's going to be more successful than a Switch 1. Higher price tag, $80 games. Games ain't on the cartridge. Game key cards, paying for voice chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got to think about it, bro. It's definitely not going to outsell the Switch 1. You know what I'm saying? We all can say that. I think the Switch 2 is projected with the way it's going, but we already know as time goes on, that's going to decline. You guys are acting like it's going to be a freight train and it's going to just continue to keep having this hype going in. Once that new Grand Theft Auto 6 come out, the hype is already dwindling down. Every time a new big AAA game comes out, that hype, or if Microsoft drops their next generation console or PlayStation with the 6, the hype goes down. It's obvious. Nothing ever stays the same. You guys are acting like, oh, this is going to continue to sell like this for the next upcoming 5 years. That never happens. No matter how successful something is, that is not possible. Things decline through time, as well as people. I mean, you should look no further than yourself. We get old. We decline as we get older. Like, I mean, come on, bro. You guys, man, you guys are weird, bro.
See the success? Now bring on Samus. This is my buddy, Rule of Two Review, Rob. This guy is a massive Metroid fan. He basically bought it day one, specifically being like, all right, I'm going to go wherever plays Metroid Prime 4 in the best graphics possible. But some people sort of forget this idea. The Switch effect. There was this crazy thing last gen where you really could not predict how well something would blow up on the Nintendo Switch 1. Like, truly, you see a game that have the worst graphics, the crappiest frame rate, just, I mean, honestly, laughably bad ports at times. But when it went to the Nintendo Switch, it would sell like crazy because people were still excited to play it portably, to take games and play it portably.
But the problem is the Switch 2 doesn't have that same Switch effect. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, oh, I see what you're saying, Gamester. And let's not lie. PlayStation, because if you want to compare the Switch 1, you also have to compare it with the products that was out at the time. These Uncharted 4 sold like 20 mil. Spider-Man sold 20 mil. And the funny thing is, PlayStation was still selling their exclusive games at the time, even before they went on PC, with a lower install base than you guys, and they still had very similar numbers to you, even with the third party that PlayStation had. And people are like, well, that's not a big thing. Yes, it is, because the best games on Nintendo are usually the Nintendo games. More than likely. That's what you buy a Nintendo Switch 2 for the exclusives. While on PlayStation, you buy it for the exclusives and, well, obviously they're going to PC, but you get my point. And the third party. You get what I'm saying? And they still outsold some of the same games that were available on Switch. Now, mind you, there's some games on Switch 1 that just completely outsold any game that was on PlayStation 4, but my point still stands. They have more competition on the PS4 than you guys have with the Switch 1. You guys know what I'm saying is true, man. And I'm not trying to down talk the Switch 2. I am saying things to put things in a perspective so people understand, like, oh, okay, yeah, this hype train, it can be derailed. Like I said, it's good for right now, but we don't know how this is going to do well in the upcoming years. That is my argument. That's all I'm saying. Nobody's saying it's a failure. I think it's going to Switch 2 is going to be a success. It's already a guaranteed success. All they did was have backwards compatibility. That already made the Switch 2 a success. The fact that it's a portable and not a home console from Nintendo is already a success because Nintendo always dominates in portable gaming. That was all. I've already told you that was a success. You get what I mean? So nobody's sitting there not saying that. We're saying that you guys are making up all these claims. It's going to do better than the Switch 1. And that's when I got to have to humble you Nintendo fanboys.
And I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is, in a way, even maximizing that, where it becomes, okay, which game do I want to buy Silk Song on, right? I can only buy Silk Song one place. What's the best place to buy it? Well, I'm going to buy it on the place where I can play it on the go. I'm going to buy it wherever I can, just pick it up. I've got this bigger screen. I've got my cool automatic Joy-Cons and stuff, right? The Switch effect is so immeasurably massive. It still just blows my mind that, honestly, it is so crazy. Now, Nintendo Switch 2 is revised its forecast from 15 million to 19 million units. I'll be honest, off the top of my head, I cannot remember the last time I've seen this. I mean, I'm just being straight up here. I'm not being hyperbolic. I genuinely cannot remember the last time I remember a company revising sales metrics up. 99.999% of the time, you're scaling it down. You're basically saying, oh, this is not going as good as we thought. Oh, let's scale it down.
Yeah, I think if the Switch 2, yeah, I don't think nobody's saying that the Switch 2 is going to be a failure like that, but to put things in perspective, Mario Kart World really didn't sell. In my honest opinion, it only sold whatever people bought with the physical copies. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look, 9.57 million. The Switch 2 was at 10 million. Clearly, people that bought the Switch 2 got it through the bundle, which means that not very many people bought the game. Understand what I'm saying? Donkey Kong Bonanza, that game can count because as a Switch 2 exclusive, you can't use the backbones of the Switch 1, so obviously you have to bank it off its own merits. 3.49 million for a Donkey Kong game is actually quite good. It really is, right? But where's all the other games? Where's Pokemon? They didn't even put Pokemon Legends there. Oh, that's right, because Pokemon Legends is not really a Switch 2 game. Oh, you're like, oh, Snack Games. Metroid Prime 4, yeah, it's probably going to have good sales, but how many people are going to buy it on Switch 1 in comparison to the Switch 2, though? Do you get what I'm saying? Nintendo is barely selling 10, 15, 20 mil with an install base of over 160 million Switch 1s, and you got an additional 10 million Switch 2s, and you guys acting like this is crazy? You're like, oh, Snack Games, to your right. It's not like the Switch 1 ain't established. Your games are still dropping on there. That's why they didn't show Pokemon Legends, because I heard Pokemon Legends sold about 5, 6 mil. But you know why they didn't include it? Because it's not a Switch 2 game. It's a Switch 1 game. It's a cross-generation title. So obviously these games are going to succeed. That's kind of how Nintendo set it up for. So regardless of where you buy it, it doesn't matter. A sale is a sale. But at the end of the day, it speaks volumes that a lot of people didn't really buy the Switch 2 for exclusives. Because if they did, Donkey Kong Bonanza should be at 7, 8 million. It shouldn't be at 3. It should not be at 3. I mean, that's still very good for a Donkey Kong. I'm just saying, if people bought a Switch 2 to play that game, then it should be why is it, you know what? I got a better argument. Why isn't it not close to Mario Kart World? Ding, 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 ding. Good answer, Carl, because you had to buy it. Have you noticed that? When you compare a game that's bundled in to a game that you have to purchase, for some reason, the sales happen to be lower? It's common sense, people. How do you... It's like, I know you guys want to be on this always glazing Nintendo, but man, let's keep things in perspective here, people.
It was cheaper. And I'm just going to put this in here real quick, right? I'm just going to say that...
Put it in.
I have said in multiple videos now that I think the first next-gen console that manages to get down to the $300 price point is going to completely take over the entire industry. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I straight up think that if they find a way to get the Nintendo Switch 2 down to the price of the Nintendo Switch 1.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think I could definitely see that. If Nintendo does that, then yes, they will have another Switch 2. And like I said, maybe they're doing that on purpose. Maybe they're keeping the high price tag, so eventually as time goes on, or whatever Microsoft, maybe they're waiting to see what the next generation consoles have in store. Nintendo could probably drop the price, come up with a Switch Lite, and yes, I could see it being successful again. Of course. Like, this is all in Nintendo's favor, but let's not forget, it is a portable device, which is a market that Nintendo has always dominated in. This is not a home console. I love how people keep treating this like it's a home console, like PlayStation and Xbox. It's not a home console. Nintendo left home consoles with the Wii U. Let's get it correct. It's a portable console that can be played on your television screen. No different than a Steam Deck. That's the market that's in. Don't act like it's in the same market as the PS5 because it's not a home console. It's just a portable console that can be played at home. It's kind of funny how you word it that way.
What the Switch 1 was at launch, it's
a portable console that can be played at home.
It is going to take over everything. Every game is going to be made and optimized for the Nintendo Switch 2.
No, they won't. No, they won't. That's not true because Grand Theft Auto 6 is not going to optimize their games. NBA 2K, Madden, you're completely missing the point. There's a lot of third-party games that are not even going to look at the Switch 2. Once that new Xbox and PlayStation come out, the Switch 2 in regards to third party is going to be left in the dust. It's going to be far worse than when the Switch 1 even came out. It's going to be far worse. Far worse. Y'all complain about game key cards now? Wait till the new next generation consoles come out. It's going to be even worse for you guys. Y'all still playing Madden at 30 FPS. Y'all just got 60 FPS with Switch 2 on, and it still looks like the same game on PS4 with PS4 graphics. Like, I mean, what are y'all talking about?
Switch 2 is going to have the highest sales and stuff like that. And the reason I think that is that a lot of people just are straight up broke. Even the best estimates, the most accurate sounding leaks, it seems like the PlayStation 6, when it comes out in 2027, is very likely going to cost about $600 to $700 on the low end, right? So my thought is that if they manage to get the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 down to $300, which, of course, this is a pie-in-the-sky dream. Typically, consoles...
If Nintendo does do something like that, then they're going to definitely charge $80 for exclusives. Guaranteed. if Nintendo has to drop the price of the Switch 2, the games are all going up. I could see that. Maybe they, you know what I mean? I could see that.
More expensive, not less expensive, but let's be
Have you heard all the third party? You say that people are buying games on Switch. Third party has said the Switch 2 ports have been the lowest of the lowest expectations. Because let's not get it twisted. Even though they're buying their games, third party games is games in general. Let it be first party and third party. And nobody's supporting the Switch 2 with third party. Barely anybody. You had companies come out and say the game sold on Switch 2, the lowest of the lowest expectations. That's what they said. It's so bad that they're even selling worse than Xbox. Third party. So it's so funny. They never mention that, though. That people buy less third party, which I don't know if people think it's a benefit or not. I'm just saying. They buy less games on Switch than they buy on Xbox. And like, that don't even make sense, bro. And y'all got all these damn Switches out there, and y'all buying less third-party games than them? Like, that's crazy.
Optimistic. If they drop the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 down by the time that the PS6 comes out, I think this is going to be an even bigger juggernaut going forward, right? It's still just wild to think about that. The original Switch took 9 months to sell 10 million units, and even that was considered to be such a gangbusters console. Nintendo Switch 2 is selling 10.36.
But also, too, they pumped out less Switches because of the dying Wii U. Also, too, another thing you Nintendo fanboys are not taking into consideration is also the COVID. Y'all like, that's not a bit. Yes, it was. The PlayStation 5 released during the time of COVID. And it still sold 7.8 million. Switch 2 didn't have to deal with that. Y'all like, oh, snap, GameStop, you're right. So when you guys say that the Switch 2 is outpacing the PlayStation 5, understand that the PlayStation 5, so funny, you guys say I'm an Xbox fanboy, but I'm defending PlayStation right now. The PlayStation 5 had to deal with all those aspects that the Switch 2 did not have to deal with. You're like, oh snap, you're right. And it still sold 7.8 million. And on top of the fact that the PS5s weren't even stores and it were hard to get. Switch 2s are not hard to get either. You guys, I hope you guys understand that. Switch 2s are very easy to get. I've seen like 50 of these at Best Buy. They pumping these out like nothing. They trying to get rid of this, right? But the PS5 was a little different. So you can't really say that in the PS5 still sold around the same time. Look it up, 7.8 mil. So you tell me what's more impressive. Drop it out during COVID and still being able to outpace the Switch 2 close to outpacing the Switch 2, or the Switch 2 not dealing with any of that and eclipsing 10 million within the same time. It depends. Like I said, it is subjective. I would say the PS5 was harder, in my personal opinion, because you came out during the time of COVID when people had less money, like you guys keep talking about, than they do now.
1,000 units in just 3 months. Look at that. Remember when everybody was hating how expensive it was and said they'd stick to the original? Switch 2 moving PS2 numbers already. Man, it's just wild. It's just so wild to me. Nintendo Switch 2 sold 10 million units. It's the fastest game console sales ever. Similar to the talked about not buying it, but boycott the price and quality, but then the Switch is up and they buy the whole damn thing. Interesting. I do think that this is dead serious.
But they're not really buying the games like you think. I'm trying to throw this in perspective. Like I said, you can't use Mario Kart World because it's a bundled in game. Because if you're using bundled in games, then Astro Playroom outsold it. Astro's Playroom is at 80 million, according to the perspective of what I'm saying. That's why if you notice, I'm not using that game because it was a bundled game. I used Donkey Kong Bonanza because that was a game that people had to physically go out there and purchase. And which, in my opinion, it's good for a Donkey Kong game, but it doesn't speak volumes of success for Nintendo. Pokemon Legends ZA, which also did well, because like I said, these games do well because they're low budget. First off, they don't put $2 million worth in their game. They put like $200,000 and then they walk out with AAA money. They're indie games with AAA money, right? That's why Nintendo's out here fist bumping. Look at it. It's me, Mario. I'm ripping you off. I put $200,000 in the budget, walking out with $200 million. Right? Should be a picture of Wario with the way they be hustling y'all. But my point stands is that when it comes down to the Switch 2, it's not being built off the backs of its own software like that. It's being built off expansion packs, Tears of Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Y'all know what I'm saying is true. Y'all gotta stop capping. Y'all like Dan games. I'm a Nintendo fan, but what you saying is true. Y'all building up the success. This is a hustle right now. Nintendo's out here selling expansion packs, paying for voice chat, You know what I'm saying? Gatekeeping Nintendo GameCube games off a subscription service that you paying the same amount as. Yo, y'all ain't seeing this, man. Y'all can just sit there and use Mario Kart World as that grace of hope. But let's not forget, it was a bundled in game. So if you bought the Switch 2 with it, it was bundled. That means only 1 million people bought the game themselves, which in my opinion is kind of pathetic. And I think it would have sold well anyway. That's why Nintendo bundled it in. So I'm not trying to take away the credit of Mario Kart World. But Donkey Kong Bonanza, 70% chose not to buy it. 70%. Not even half of your community. Even though you guys say we like exclusives. Well, not every gamer like all types of games. But you would have picked it up if it was Mario. Funny thing is Donkey Kong Bonanza was supposed to be a Mario game. But since y'all see the ape in it, oh, we don't want that. It's gotta be the man with the hat and the mustache. That's who it's gotta be. You know, that would have probably boosted up. They probably should have put Mario in that game. They probably would have made more money. Also, too, Pokemon Legends, 50% worse than Archives with a higher install base, including from Switch 1 to Switch 2. Metroid Prime 4, we'll see how well that sells. That will be the kicker. We'll see. If that game comes out and only sells 2 million with the install base that has, that's going to be very disappointing. I mean, it did enough to do well. Nobody's sitting there saying it didn't. But to me, that's disappointing because I'm looking at the overall scheme of things. You got 160 million Switch 1s, 10 million Switch 2s. Why aren't these games selling better? Why ain't they selling the 40, 50 mil? Why is Pokemon Legends still selling? Matter of fact, it's selling worse, 50% worse than it did when it dropped out on Switch 1 Archives, the first game, with a lower install base. Well, how come you Nintendo fanboys ain't saying it? Oh, that's right, because you want to go with these narratives just like these ponies. We get it. I understand it, but I know how to break all this down because I'm not stupid. Nobody's saying your games ain't successful. We already know, low budget, AAA money, AA games, AAA money. We get the hustle. I already know that. So I don't need people explaining that to me. All I'm saying is that you guys talk about exclusives, but yet clearly they ain't that big. They're not that big, in my opinion. Throw things in perspective, people. Pokemon Legends sold 50% worse than Sword and Shield, than Archives, and y'all act like that's not a concern. When Pokemon Sword and Shield came out, which was one of the highest selling Pokemon games, mind you, that game came out with an install base that barely even had as many Switches as we see now. And it probably still will outsell Legends, ZA, which has an install base of 160 million established Switch 1 owners and 10 million additional Switch 2 owners. And you guys don't see that as a concern. You guys don't say, yeah, the Switch 2 is selling good, but why are people buying less and less games, though? Even on Switch 1, they're buying less and less games. The only reason why they're still charting, because they're selling them between Switch 1 and Switch 2, which is also cross-generation. God of War, when it came out, the original, on PS4, the first remake, that sold 20 million off the PS4's back. God of War Ragnarok did see similar success, but it also sold money off the backs of the PS4 and the 5. Y'all like, oh, snap games. So I see what you're saying. You get what I mean? Yeah, God of War Ragnarok did do well, but it only did well because it was on PS4 and 5. So it had a bigger install base. You had freaking, at the time, I don't know, 50 million there and 100 million there. Way more than what God of War had at the time when that game came out. And y'all act like that's not a room for concern. People are buying less and less games, even though you still see these games charting. The gamers are talking, man. Because if they weren't, Pokemon Legends ZA should have did way better than what Archives did. It sold 50% worse. I don't care how well the Switch 2 did. It didn't force nobody to go pick one up for that game. Just because you all got upgrade packs.
Anything I've seen, like the people
Why do you think they didn't show the Pokemon Legends 2 Switch 2 version? Oh, that's right, because most people probably bought it on Switch 1. There you go. That's why they show Bonanza and they show Mario Kart World. 2 games that are actually Switch 2 exclusive. Metroid Prime is not an exclusive. I could play it on the Switch 1. An exclusive is a game where I have to buy the hardware to play the said game. I don't care if it's a Nintendo. I don't care what it is. It's not an exclusive in my eyes. If I can play the game on another platform besides the other one, regardless if it's a Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation exclusive, at all, it is not a real exclusive. An exclusive is a game that can only be available on one device. Not two, not 3. That's multi-platform. Even that's not multi-platform with their own systems. They're like, damn games. So you guys want to make up these stories? What did the Nintendo exclusive? It's Nintendo. I don't care. I don't need a Switch 2 to play it, do I? I don't need a Switch 2 to play any, besides these two, to play Pokemon Legends. I don't need a Switch 2 to play Metroid Prime 4. I don't need it. So think about what I'm saying here, guys. All the third party has sold like trash. Matter of fact, those games are more exclusive on the Switch 2 than what you get with the Switch 1, because at least, there are other places, but in regards to Nintendo hardware, you can only play Cyberpunk on Switch 2. You can't play it on Switch 1. You can only play Street Fighter 6 on Switch 2. You can't play it on Switch 1 in regards to their own ecosystem. You feel what I'm saying? And those games are selling like garbage. Lowest of the lowest expectations. Take that in consideration, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This is no way imaginable trying to bash Nintendo. Nintendo's doing good. They've always done good with portables. You would never have me tell you that. I'm just saying, humble yourselves. All right? Humble. Because you might get your feelings hurt when that Grand Theft Auto 6 come out and that new PlayStation and that new Xbox come out, and then the hype just starts dwindling down. It starts dwindling down. People stop caring about it because y'all don't got the same games. You don't got the same third party. People getting tired of Pokemon. You got a high install base with your games. You're banking off the backs of the Switch 1, but you ain't banking off the backs off the Switch 2. You guys are single-handedly relying on Switch 1 to push sales for your game, because if that was the case, then Metroid Prime 4 should be a Switch 2 exclusive. It shouldn't even drop on the Switch 1. But we already know why Nintendo's doing that, because they're not confident that it's going to get the same success if they don't drop it on both platforms. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, man, we always bring in perspectives within the gaming community. The Switch 2 is a success. Nobody's hating on that, but I think people need to have these conversations. That's all I'm saying. Take care. Peace out.